It's Monday. We had a bye week. It's 9:13. Richard, I mean, we're going to talk about this tonight, but I mean, 20 years since 9/11, 2001. Unreal just for multiple reasons, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I don't want to say it flew by, but yeah.
We're going to talk about that and so much more because we've been gone for a week and just so much has happened. And I'm Ryan.
And I'm Richard.
Here we go. Well, I don't want to jinx anything, but sometimes I'm like digging for news, like entertainment news. And I feel like prior to this past week, it was just Delta variant. Like people just couldn't really get anything out because a lot was going on with the Delta variant. This past week, lots of things happened. 9/11 20th anniversary. I feel like there was a lot more news, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, there was. I had to cut a lot of news. Usually it's like you said, usually it's kind of bare. And we're gonna wind up just repeating stories about the Delta variant and COVID and stuff like that. But yeah, no, we've got a ton.
Yeah, so we've got a ton, and we're going to start with the news with Richard. Oh, right. Richard, where to start with the news?
Well, I have an idea. As you well know, the W Hotel that just opened up in Philadelphia. Are you familiar with it?
I'm familiar with it. Pretty familiar with it. Yeah.
Now I'm going to ask you. I'm going to kind of make this an interview segment. Yeah. Do you know how many W's there are? Like, are they only in like big cities?
I hope nobody's watching. They are not only in the big cities. I do forget the number. They actually just read this to us in training. I forget
because I feel like it's it's not. Yeah, you're not going to find it in Iowa.
No, you won't find it in Iowa. So, fun fact that I was learning. Actually, I found out during my training, and I was like, "Oh, this is a pretty cool fact." So, every W, it's one brand, right? One identity, okay. One way that we talk to the guests, one way we refer to our talent. That's what they're called, not staff, not employees. We call them talent. The verbiage is a little bit different. For example, the front desk is called welcome. We don't have a front desk. Our housekeeping team is not called housekeeping. They're called style, and we call the ladies and gentlemen of the team stylists. But one thing I found out during training, and I was just like, whoa, this is a really cool fact. Even though all of that is the same, we want to keep our identity. We want to keep it consistent. Every hotel, every W hotel is designed differently. The artwork is different. The beds are different. Oh. The paint is different. The way the shower is laid out is different. Like there's some W's, there's a W where the shower is like in the middle of the room and it's just glass, like no wall. So it's always different in that aspect. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that's pretty neat. And you had your first wedding? This was the first official wedding there?
We got our second wedding out of the way already.
Oh, wow.
So we're keeping busy.
I got to imagine that is a unique event.
No sleep till Brooklyn for me, for my team.
All right, well, I will quickly get through the news here. That's the portion of the program where Richard stalls so he can share the live video on his account. It always takes an extra second. All right, our top five. We are coming in here, like Ryan has said, we had a bye week last week where Shang-Chi was number one with about $75 to $80 million, which was a surprise. It was a discussion how well they were going to do. And in their second week, they were the number one movie again with $35 million. So for a movie in September, those are really good numbers. So congratulations to Shang-Chi and Marvel for that. As much as we care to celebrate Marvel and Disney for their success, they'll be okay. But super excited for a movie with a predominantly Asian cast, to go out and tell a good story. And it's kind of cool for me to run into my students who loved it as a story, so
Mhm.
that was cool. Free Guy was in at second place with 5 million. Malignant was in second, like 5.6 million. Candyman, fourth place with 4.8, and Jungle Cruise, which I think has been out for almost 2 months now, at 2.5 million. So that is our top 5 at the box office. So we're going to
Just
see
one
how
thing
that.
I'd like to say.
Yeah, please.
Sorry, I just cut you off.
No, no,
Monica
no.
said do that a lot. I will say, because you and I talked about it a couple times over the summer, for me, it's really nice to hear that movies are staying in the lineup. Because you remember, like, nothing lasted longer than a week in the summer. Like, what is it called? Free Guy is still there.
Yeah, Free Guy's still
Candyman is
there.
still there. So a couple of the films, it's like, all right, cinema, we were limping. Maybe we're starting to get back to some sort of normalcy there.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna have a couple stories, like Ryan was saying. Like usually, we're searching for stories that hit like as the as the show is starting. And Ryan just posted a story that Disney is going to be in theaters only for the rest of the year. So
Yeah.
listen, it's talking to a colleague at work today. And she was like, "Oh," she overheard me talking to students about Shang-Chi, and she was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, should I rent it for my husband and I?" And I'm like, like, and that's what stinks, as a mom, an immunocompromised husband, her, has 3
Okay.
kids. It's not just as easy to run out to the movie theater for her. So she
Right.
loved that they could see Black Widow this summer. So it's a tough one. I understand from a profit standpoint, they want to get that direct money from the movie theaters, but yeah. Now, coming on December 22nd, Matrix 4 is coming. The preview
I
hit.
didn't realize it was that soon.
Yep. Yes, December 22nd. So I was not excuse me. I was a huge fan of The Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
Thought it was groundbreaking.
Yep.
Uh, my only memory of 2 and 3 is kind of falling asleep during 3, or
I did too.
it just wasn't. It just didn't quite hit me. There was a lot, the surprise and reality. I won't spoil for anyone who hasn't seen it, but the kind of like little shocks that happened with the first one, where you see the difference between reality, what the Matrix is. Then the second and third one had to deal with that, and so like Ryan has said in his write ups about the preview, looks like we're kind of going back to the basics of the first one. A lot is, all your favorite characters are there, with maybe a young Morpheus rather. So, I was watching it with someone and they were like, "Where is Lawrence Fishburne?" I'm like, I don't know the stuff behind it, but cool to see. It should be a huge hit for Keanu Reeves, and look for Ryan and I to do a Keanu Reeves podcast in the not too near future. We'll have to plan it out, but like Ryan had said to me, like, what a neat career this guy had. I mean, really, he was.
Yeah.
He was. You just made fun of him for Bill and Ted and Point Break. Anything he did, everyone would be like, "Oh, honestly, you go watch In Living Color, Mad TV, Saturday Night Live in the '90s." There is a joke Keanu Reeves character of like, "Oh, here's Keanu Reeves doing Shakespeare." Or here's and it's just like, "Hey, wherefore out there, dude?" Like, he was kind of like a joke, and he's just worked consistently. He didn't reinvent himself. It's not like Tom Hanks, who does a serious role, or Robin Williams, who did a serious role. He just kept working, and I'm sure we give a lot of credit to John Wick's success for who
100%.
he is right now. So yeah, I would love to look at Keanu's career a little closer. All right.
I want to ask you a question real quick.
Sure, please.
About Keanu. Without us starting the Keanu podcast, everybody.
Right, of course. Right.
And one of the reasons I want to talk about it is because, and I just want to see if you feel the same. Sometimes I feel like Speed, The Matrix, what was that one? The Devil's Advocate, all those 90s films.
Right.
Like, it doesn't even feel like the same Keanu. Does that make sense?
It doesn't, right? Because again, and for the podcast, we'll bust out his IMDb. Right. It doesn't feel like the same, like whoever he was from those first few movies. And I know he had some bit roles around the time of Bill and Ted, but he had that same voice. And then I forgot about Devil's Advocate. But yeah, and then I don't want to say he disappears, but he's kind of quiet for a couple years there.
Yeah.
Before John Wick and stuff like that. So interesting to see. Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, he's one of those, you can go through his timeline. I'm wondering if to a lesser extent, we can do the same thing with Matthew McConaughey a little bit of like, he was, he was kind of this one guy, and then he did some great roles, and he's on the roller coaster of stereotypes. So I think
Point Break. How did we forget that?
Yeah, someone said it earlier in the conversation. I'm not going to.
We're going to do Jake Gyllenhaal and from Bubble Boy and Donnie Darko to
right. I was going to say
whatever it is now.
I honestly maybe. And again, as always, we say thank you for being involved in our planning sessions. We do our planning sessions. That actually sounds like what it could be as a segment in every podcast is called Actor Spotlight. We spotlight. Yeah. Again, Speed. He was great in Speed. Like he was really great.
I love Speed.
So
Speed. Simple, so great.
Yeah, really was. I wish they'd been able to pull him off. But listen, they say when people fall in love during strenuous situations, it doesn't last. So I have heard that. So big premiere on Wednesday on Netflix. The YA book Night Books is having a premiere. Night Books is written by J.A. White, and it is starring Kristen Ritter, who we know best from Jessica Jones. She had a small role in Breaking Bad, but an infamous role in Breaking Bad. She was the bee in Apartment 23, but most of us know her as Jessica Jones from the Marvel Netflix. It is the story of a witch who traps kids in New York City apartment. It is a neat kind of, it's a, like tagline is describe it as a retelling of Hansel and Gretel. And, but it's kind of funny. Like she traps these kids in her apartment and she puts them to work doing witch stuff. But, it's like a modern take where she's growing things and she's doing things because people don't want to buy spells anymore. They all want like herbal, like, stuff they can put in diffusers. They want like, I forget the name of that company that sells all the, like herbal, yeah, right. Yeah. Right. So it's kind of a thing. So I'll see how scary it is. I avoided reading the book because I thought it was super scary and I don't like scary things. But when I saw it was coming out on Netflix, I checked it out. So hopefully Netflix will have a hit here with Night Books by J.A. White. And also always curious to see how well you can pull off adapting a show. Hey, Ryan, if last week I'd said to you, who is Steve Burns? What would you have said?
I'm still looking and I don't know who Steve Burns is. I'm terrible right now.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So
is this the one where you talked about renting out the theater, right?
I did not talk. I don't know what you're talking about. You can remind me later. Steve Burns used to live with his dog. It was a big blue dog. And they used to have a little mystery with each other. So, but
you should have just said Steve.
Right, I should have just said Steve.
Yeah, then I would have been like, oh yeah, Steve, I got it.
But Steve from Blue's Clues was in the news this week. If you couldn't go on social media without seeing Steve's video, and now you can't go on social media without seeing memes of Steve,
included.
And so Steve from Blue's Clues, who disappeared, and he came back, and he kind of had a message for everyone. Definitely check it out if you haven't seen Steve's Blue's Clues video, where he went away to college, and he kind of just tells us how important we were to him and encourages us. A really, really great video, especially for any of you, who were watching that. I missed out on that. I was very aware of it. I was very aware that, again, like this is, I remember like everyone thought Steve had died or Steve was having drug problems because, of course, it can't just be that, they wanted to replace the actor. So that was big. Steve, Blue's Clues and Steve was back in the news. The MAs are this Sunday, September 19th. So check them out. Well, you want to talk about
some of them win?
So
what's going on with that?
So what they've done over the years is kind of like the Oscars will do is, except the Emmys do it a week before. The Oscars will always have an event like the night or two beforehand where they'll give out for best lighting in a documentary. Okay. I want to call them the more boring awards. They'll kind of have them there. And, again, I don't want to disrespect it because somebody gets awards.
It's a talent. It's an art.
For all their hard work. Yeah. So you're seeing a lot of Emmys being awarded for like best costume designer in a show, best sound in a show, stuff that over the years was deemed too boring to have on, on the regular award show, because we complained and we're like, I don't need to see who the best flower designer is in a show. So you're seeing a lot of awards being given out. But this is, again, we are living in a streaming service dominated world. Most of the awards, are not ABC, CBS, NBC. It is shows from Apple TV, Disney Plus, Netflix, Hulu, you name it, Amazon Prime. They are all there. If we can pull it together, it works out with Ryan and Shanna. Maybe we'll try to do a quick little prediction video for some of the better ones if we can pull it off this weekend. If not, we will be back next Monday and talk about some of the winners.
We can pull it off.
It will be curious to see. Again, like I would probably wind up picking all my WandaVision shows and stuff like that. HBO Max shows like Lovecraft Country, I would pick. So
is Mayor there?
Mayor's there. Yeah, this is gonna be tough. It's a really tough,
tough one.
Actually, I really literally can save us time from doing the video. I'll be like, let me look this up. Emmy nominations. Because I can sit there and I can read. Shanna, can you hear me? Can you come appear in the show for 1 minute?
Come on, Shanna.
She's not going to appear on the show. She's refusing to appear. She only wants red M&Ms for her to appear on the show. It's very... very frustrating. So I will just do an imitation of her. All right, Shanna, who would you pick as a standing lead actress in a drama series? I don't know who any of these people are. No, Shanna, take a deep breath. You do know who these people are. Okay. Okay. Who are they? All right. Journey Smollett from Lovecraft Country. Yeah. All right. Her. Okay. I read the wrong category. I have to take back my minutes. All right. Now, Shanna, I want you to pick the lead actress in a limited series. Oh, okay. I can do this. All right. Here you go. Pick your lead actress in a limited series. All right. Kate Winslet from Mayor of Easttown. Elizabeth Olsen from WandaVision.
It's tough.
It's too tough. Why do they have to do this? Yeah. So that was not a great invitation. It didn't work as well.
That is tough, though.
But it's tough. It's going to be really tough. I mean,
yeah.
Any year, it's Wanda. But then any year it's Mayor. Like I gotta imagine it's Mayor. So it will be interesting to see. Again, so we will talk. But speaking of streaming shows and Disney Plus and WandaVision, the Hawkeye trailer debuted today. So we have been waiting since Loki, which I was gonna say waiting. It's been since June. So it has been that crazy. The Hawkeye trailer, so it'll be the next live action show from Marvel and Disney Plus. It's airing in the kind of the time frame spot that Mandalorian traditionally airs. Maybe Friday? A little, yeah. So starting on November 24th. So Mandalorian the last 2 years has kind of been an October through December show.
Oh yeah, okay, gotcha.
So this will be a November through December show. I think it'll be the 6 weeks leading up to Christmas because it is a Christmas themed show. It happens during Christmas. Like it happens in New York City during Christmas time. So rumors of the Wet Bandits from Home Alone 2 being in New York. And it sounds like I'm making a joke, but it's basically, it'll be one of the, I thought Captain America and Falcon was going to be like this, but it had a lot of other, like, this is going to be a street level, like, this is not going to be crazy aliens or anything weird. It's going to be just fighting bad guys on the streets, guns and arrows and fisticuffs. So check out the Hawkeye trailer if you haven't already seen it, and the Oppenheimer Project's Facebook page, and that'll be it. Again, breaking news. Ryan posted just before we went live. TMZ has been sold to the Fox Corporation.
I can't believe that.
For $50 million. Now, we all know Harvey Levin, the star of TMZ show, or the creator and owner of TMZ. It is funny and interesting how TMZ has kind of gone from this very paparazzi driven, like, it still is, but like it just started out as nudges and it somehow turned into an empire. So again, I don't know if that's Harvey getting that $50 million or he's kind of sharing it with some people.
I couldn't believe the evaluation. And
yeah, right.
Just to answer what you were saying, like I'm somebody who I don't care who I see post it. I have to Google it no matter what right after. I'll take TMZ as a reliable source. That's where they're at with me. Seriously. And I know
Well,
that some of it, it might be trash or people might see it that
right,
way.
right, yeah,
Reliable source.
I think that's accurate. I think they've who they were in 2005 when they were first around to who they are now. Yeah, that's the idea. They really have said, yeah, if we're going to put out stuff, and again, they do pay freelance, they do some things, but they have they've gone from a little less of like we're waiting outside of their apartment building to make sure we can catch them without their makeup on to a little better, not great,
Yeah.
a little better. But and again, the good news for Harvey Levin is he's probably walking away with most of $50 million, and he's keeping his job. He will still be on the TV show, and the head of team will just have a lot less financial responsibility for paying people because Fox Corp, which is important because our next story will be distinguishing it. Fox Corp is taking a chance on them. So, yeah, I don't know if we'll see any difference between TMZ now that they've been sold and bought. But TMZ has been sold for $50 million.
Unreal.
Ryan also recently posted now that the TV show Cops has been bought by Fox News, and will air their. Did you say 33rd season?
It's the 33rd season.
Which tracks because it's been 31 years since 1990, and I feel like it was a late 80s show. They've taken a year off or so. There hasn't been a Cops for a while. This is a mixed bag for me. This is a mixed bag for me. I think Ryan is. I don't want to say excited, but Ryan's like, go for it. I mean, again, Cops it's a grandpa show. It is an old show. It has lasted for a long time. And again, it is that we often talk about it. It's that background noise TV show. You're probably rarely watching it with like, oh, I have to watch every second to see what's happening.
Until you hear this. You hear the shuffle when they start to chase somebody. Then
you're like, right. You do hear the shuffle. So, again, PD Live, Cops, several of these live shows that involve law enforcement kind of disappeared from our site over the last year or so because a lot of the issues happening out there with George Floyd and things like that. So it's a mixed bag for me because it's like every topic we talk about here, again, TMZ is not great. It's not great, but there are people who love and enjoy it. There are people who love and enjoy Cops. It's like almost anything, is Cops, is Cops showing people in the right light? Is it showing Cops in the right light? So the jury's out for me. I don't know. Again, it's not like we're watching anything live. So it's not like we're like, oh, this will be a way of keeping people honest.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Here's something that I would suggest to anybody. And I mean this like in a very, I don't want to say, well, I do mean it seriously, but not like serious. Like this is like the only way to do it. If you ever get a chance to watch some of the older Cops episodes and then kind of compare it to, or actually don't kind of compare it to videos from Police Activity. For those of you that don't know, it's a page on YouTube with over like 1 million subscribers, and all they show is body cam footage. Very unbiased page. If a cop's in the wrong, they'll describe it. If a cop's in the right, the dialogue is never changed, right? They just list what happened. It's not like they give a point or this or that. But what I noticed from watching older episodes of Cops and then watching things like Police Activity and Live PD, you really do get to see how society and policing has changed over 33 years. Like you watch it and crime just it's, and I know it just didn't seem as severe as it is today, if that makes sense. Like there was maybe some guy, you get what I'm saying? Like, and now
I'm also wondering
like,
if it's, I'm also wondering
go ahead, you go.
If it's what they chose to show back then, whereas today, like I feel like that was what PD Live was up against, was like, no one's going to keep watching us if we're just showing someone getting pulled over for a broken taillight. Like we need that person to be drunk. We need the person to be like trying to fight the cop, like we want a confrontation.
Well, there's one where if you actually, there's a lot, like I'm saying, the one really good episode, I don't know if it's still on YouTube, is they're covering Mardi Gras.
Okay.
And just old school policing where they see two kids on a roof trying to get back into an apartment or something. And the cops are like, yo, Get down here. The kid's like, I can't. And the cop's like, well, I bet you if I pulled out my gun and shot you in the ass, you'd figure out how to get down here. Get down here. Right? So they get the kids down there. What are you guys doing? Our parents are out. We're locked out of the house. All right. Well, what do you want me to do? I can't have you climbing on the roof like that. And the cop's like, and the kid's like, well, since you verify that I live here, can you just let me get back up? And the cop's like, can you wait until I walk away at least? Just like kind of that old school policing where, and I'll be honest, you know me, I support law enforcement when it's done correctly, but I just don't think that a police officer would be able to get away with that without being, today it'd be recorded, or perhaps the officer's a little more. I think policing was different, if that makes sense. People get what I'm saying.
Yeah,
it's a little strict.
I get. Today. I was gonna say it's one of those funny things where I don't know if it makes sense. I get what you're saying. I know your point, but, right? And again, that's the problem. So again, before we get into another podcast, our sad news story of the week, of course, was almost a week ago. We found out that Michael K. Williams had passed away from, and I believe it's been confirmed from drug use. Last week. He's most well known as Omar from The Wire, from the Atlantic City TV show, which we all know the name of that. Okay. Yep. Yeah, he was really good at that. Boardwalk Empire. Yeah, I was just testing you. It was not my memory. It was always a test. Boardwalk Empire.
Steve Burns.
He was most recently in Lovecraft Country on HBO. Just phenomenal. Of course, played an addict. Yeah, thank you, Tim. He played an addict on Lovecraft Country, but just so powerful, so amazing in Lovecraft Country. But he lost his battle with addiction, and we lost a great actor because whatever he was in, he was awesome in. Again, one of those authentic people, has a scar across his face. Like he wasn't a person who was just like, oh, he grew up in the suburbs and then all tries to learn the role. Right. He was that person. So that was sad. All right. And that's all for me with the news. Ryan, you have anything you want to share?
I see a note here, and I want to thank Richard for putting it in there. Today would have been my cousin Greg's 50th birthday. He unfortunately passed away from ALS last year in October. It was a struggle. It was a struggle for Greg. It was a struggle for my family and I. Again, ALS. But one thing I will say, and I said this when he passed away, when I spoke at his funeral, the one thing that I gained, and I hope that everybody who saw Greg unfortunately lose this battle, and anybody who knows anybody with ALS, if there's one thing you can gain from it to live, to honor their life, if you can get out of bed and put your T-shirt on, you're left with opportunity. Seriously, because unfortunately, Greg laid there in his bed like I guess everybody with ALS does. Unfortunately, he just passed away seeing the same four walls for weeks on end. So it's a terrible disease. Being able to get up and walk is just such a gift that people take for granted. So big shout out to Greg, 50th birthday. Miss you, big guy. Seriously.
That was beautiful. Thank you. And unfortunately, we have to use, normally we try to segue to our main topic. But again, there's nothing, even though I'm sure I will figure out a way to have a little fun with this, and I'm probably just poking fun of myself for most of the next segment. 20 years since 9/11, and you talk about people who very much wish they could have woken up the next day and done mundane things, not knowing that, I just want to get this part out of the way, because this is very much like the comment section on a zip code page, like where, 9/11 was the worst day. Like, there's tragedy and tragedy and tragedy, and, a firefighter going into a burning building and dying is like, all right, well, that's part of, that is part of it. It doesn't take away from it. Soldiers dying in war, it's part of it. This, a car accident happens, a plane crashes. There's all these things that they're just crazy. But 9/11 was, even Pearl Harbor, like it was a base it was a naval base that was attacked. This was just, in the word of 2020, unprecedented. This was something else. This was, like we had seen small scale attack on the World Trade Center, 8 years, in the mid 90s.
Yeah.
We have seen overseas mainly like, someone driving their car full of explosives trying into a military base. We had never seen anything like what happened in New York, DC, and Pennsylvania. Um, we had never quite seen like that. And, for everyone listening, Ryan and I will probably mainly focus on New York for our talk, because that's what we lived here, living a couple hours south of New York, and that's where we'll hit upon. But and you are also looking at this from the age of 12, 13, Ryan?
12, gearing up for my bar mitzvah that was like 3 weeks away at this point.
So you weren't quite a man.
I was not quite a man yet. No.
Okay, you were about to.
No, yet. Yeah.
I was gonna say, we will discuss later. Do you feel like the amount of money you were given was in any way affected by 9/11? All right. You're like, no, I was taking care of people. People took care of Ryan during his bar mitzvah. So if you were 12, then I was 28. So I guess that was easy math to do. Yeah, so I was in that 27, 28 range. So a little different. But yes, it was crazy. So let's do the stereotypical thing we all do.
Yeah.
Where were you? What were you doing when you heard?
So I will never forget it, and even just thinking about it just sends chills down my spine, and not so much because of the news, which ultimately would affect all of us, but I remember I was in art class in middle school, and the woodshop teacher ran by screaming, "I'm getting a TV! It's on channel 6!" Right, and it's just like, whoa, what's going on, right? And then he runs over to the art teacher who was instructing our class and whispers in her ear. And I just remember being like, this art teacher is kind of loud. She's kind of annoying, right? And then her tone was here, right?
Right.
And she said, boys and girls, this morning there was an attack on the World Trade Center. And at the time, I was like, what's the World Trade Center? I only knew it as the Twin Towers, right?
Yeah, right.
So, okay. So again, and I'm sure you can attest to this, Monica as well, and Tim and everybody else. Different time. They moved us all into one room. They put the TV on. They showed us what was happening. And then we had a assembly to go to, and we all moved to the assembly. And I remember they brought us back in. We turned on the TV, and they were gone. And the woodshop teacher just lost his mind. He was, like nobody could believe it, right? They were there when we walked away. We came back, and they were gone. And I remember one of my best friends at the time, his mother picked him up from school early. Just a mess, frantic. His dad was on a plane that morning, and she wasn't able to get in touch with him. So, lots going on. I'm sure, as you know, lots of emotions there. I was a little bit younger. My mom didn't pick me up early, but I just remember sitting outside my best friend that day being like, what the hell is going on?
And very much, if anyone is still listening, please put in the comments what you were doing. If you can be, if you feel like you can break it down and tell us what you were doing. I will, Tammy, who was coming earlier today, that's really interesting how you told your story of middle school. Tammy was in her first year of teaching in Medford at the time. And she remembers that the principals kind of went around and kind of like said to the teachers, hey, this is happening, but don't put your TVs on, because we have a couple of students whose parents work up there.
Oh, wow.
We don't want, so they kind of did the opposite of kind of like keeping it quiet. I do remember from hearing other teachers talk about it over the years, remembering that, parents started showing up at school,
right, yeah.
Because there was this kind of feeling of like, I don't think anyone at the time was like, all right, well, that was it.
What's next?
Yeah, there was a feeling of what's next, which was that was a first for, for us, like, because war happens somewhere else.
Yes.
And it really does. War, other than Hawaii, war happens somewhere else to someone else, so this was interesting. But myself, mine is just, I was working in my parents' luncheonette deli at the time. We were closed on Tuesdays. All right, let's see what Tim says before I tell
let's go.
Gym class, sophomore year. I remember throughout the day, it was not addressed in some classes, and some classes just turned on the news and stopped instruction. Yeah, that's probably what I would have done if I was there. I would have had it on, and because you know what I remember? This sounds so crazy. I was a substitute teacher in 1999. This is so crazy. I was a substitute teacher in 1999, and I remember that I had Columbine on in a
When that was
classroom.
going on.
That is
Wow. Okay.
weird.
Yeah.
Like that is weird. Maybe that's why they didn't ask me to come. No, I'm not sorry. But no, like I just remember that because I guess it was a big story, and I just remember watching that in class. That's a little crazy, but um, yeah, I could see some classes choosing not to address it and others addressing it. But I was so Tuesdays was our only day off, so I was not up working. I was, I just kind of got up and just, I kind of just remember like having the news on and a West Virginia perspective. You want to read this one, Ryan? Because
Let's
you
see
can
it.
you can do Renee's accent better than me.
I was student teaching in West Virginia. We did not tell the kids, fourth graders. After school, tried calling my parents in Jersey and couldn't even get the line to ring. Phone lines were so flooded back east. And I guess that's something that like we don't like. If we thought about it real quick, we were like, okay. And then you think about it and you're like, oh, I did not have my smartphone. I did not have my laptop.
Right. We
Like,
weren't texting people. We weren't
yeah,
emailing people. Right. Like I feel like the early cell phones were there, but like there was no reaching. There was no reaching people because I do remember that trying to reach out to the one or two people I knew in New York and then David in DC, and yeah, there was just busy signals or the phone was going right to, and again, like, so that was me. I was sitting at home and I just kind of turned on the news. And again, it just didn't seem real.
yeah,
Because I was
yeah,
there from the point of like first, I want to say maybe the Today Show, where it was like we thought it was a small plane,
like a little plane. Yeah,
and it was like okay, and then when the second one hit, like that's not two planes can't hit,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then just and that to me being home, being like just watching every second of it unfurl, where it just didn't seem real, and like if we were watching it in the movie, we would have been like, oh, this is. You don't do another one. You're not going to show us the Pentagon
yeah.
now. This is crazy.
Real quick,
So yep,
because we always talk about how 9/11 changed many things, and I
yep.
think maybe you remember this. The first Spider-Man trailer teaser that was
Oh yeah, yeah.
unveiled. Remember, it showed a bank robbery, and then Spider-Man got the bank robbery helicopter caught in a web between the Twin Towers.
Yep.
That footage never resurfaced. I don't even think you can find it on YouTube. I think you have to be very lucky to find it.
No.
And then there was another movie, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Collateral Damage, which was supposed to come out in October, and that got postponed as well. I believe there was some sort of what am I talking about? Like crash into the Twin Towers or bombers, or and remember that was like a thing for a couple like months. There was terrorist films where they were like Hollywood was like, okay, and that just goes to show like, and I'm sure we'll talk on it more before I get completely sidetracked here. Today there's still this divide, and I don't want to get political or anything like that. But
I'll
I remember
we'll get there in 10, 15 minutes. So.
Yeah, but remember, like everyone, Hollywood included, was willing to slow down for just like everyone's sanity, for the well-being of the country. Everybody was like, now's not the time.
Right. And again, this is a pop culture driven show. Let the Bodies Hit the Floor. Let the Bodies Hit the Floor was like one of the top songs, on contemporary like alternative radio. And nope, Drowning Pool. That's right, Drowning Pool. Like no, it just doesn't work. That song doesn't work. Yeah, there was a couple, and again, that's a song that had nothing to do with 9/11, but yeah, I was not driving. People were not interested in hearing that. Because we'll talk more about what actually happened. But yeah, just very. I hate to use the word surreal, but just very surreal. And then I just remember, a close friend, kind of like his college classes were canceled, and he came by, and like, this is like we played Mario Kart like while the news was on, like we just played, because like what were we gonna do? We played Mario Kart, listen to because there was nothing to like, and again, like I knew that the restaurant, and I went over and started like cutting onions and cutting potatoes and getting ready for the next day of work because. I wasn't sure. I was, but, we had to be open. I do 100% remember taking every car we had to the gas station and filling up,
Oh, wow.
And, and that was just like, got to make sure all the tanks are full because who knows, like, who knows what this means. Let's make sure everything, it's kind of like when we have hurricanes or storms coming, we want, but that was it. Like go and the lines were down the block. And that was, again, where this, uh, that negativity of like people driving by the gas station screaming at the people, like, you know, it's like they're Indian from India, like, you know,
Yeah, right,
they
yeah,
they
yeah.
had nothing to do with it. And again, it, you know, at 6 o'clock at night on September 9/11, we, you know, we just, I think there was just a lot of assumptions of you know, who did it. But again, if you were a foreigner, you know, like, and again, just going down to the gas station, you know, and having to yell at people, like, can't fathom if there were zip code Facebook pages on I can't imagine how horrible it would have been,
It'd be terrible.
but it would have been terrible. But again, I just remember that kind of not knowing, and then you just being glued to the news, and, you know, and watching the uncertainty.
Yeah, and one thing that I really wanted to do this year, just because we were going to be, not just because we were going to be talking about it, but because, and no disrespect to anybody out there, but I'm just going to say it. Sometimes it can feel like people are just doing their due diligence, right? You post on 9/11, you post a meme, never forget, and it's kind of just like, okay, I did it. September 12th rolls around, but remember, like September 12th, something. It was like we're still like the dust is still settling. Like the last survivor would be pulled from the rubble at ground zero. Then September 13th, you know, I posted that video
Yeah,
today, and
right.
you
Yeah,
just
right.
see, and I think that's something that people forget is that the news anchors, like we were relying on them. There was
Yep.
no
Right.
Facebook, there was no, you know, live streaming. That they have their jackets off, their ties are undone. Everybody's just exhausted. The news anchors, it was just crazy, ridiculous, as you remember, just for a solid 2 weeks. That's what was going on, and then it was
Right.
kind of recovering and figuring things out. But it was
Yeah. That,
crazy.
right. And again, and that's where, like, we, you know, we saw this on Saturday for the 20th anniversary. Like, the Yankees played the Mets, and, you know, and they brought back, you know, the coaches and people, and, you know, they kind of focused on that. Like, yeah, like that was the thing when we could have a live event, you know. And the biggest gathering was of wrestling. Like they had the WWE SmackDown. I
Oh
think
yeah,
that Friday, the like 15th or 16th, was the first they were like, you know, it's funny. It's written in history as like, this was Vince McMahon telling the terrorists they weren't going to win. It was also probably Vince McMahon saying, I could use this $50,000, $60,000 gate I'm going to get. But again, they kind of made this declaration, and then the next week, like, baseball started. I remember going to Philly to watch the Phillies play, you know, in the first game. And again, same kind of thing. Like, I'll be repeating over and over again of like, we were there. We felt like it was something to be proud of, to be there. Like, you know, we were showing life could go on, you know. And then at some point later in the day, like, I do love that the invite to just showed up at my work email, 8:43. I just got my work email takes emails from other people very seriously. It was making sure it was fine. But again, at some point, like, I remember later in the game, someone started walking around with like kill the Arab sign, and like, you know, kill all the, you know, like, it's like, where, you know. And thankfully, like, my friends and people around us kind of like booed the guy away. But like, um you know, it's that hate that's always existed in the world that, you know, takes it away. But again, there's just those things, like you said, like, eventually sports brought us back into normalcy. TV shows started coming back. I remember we had the concert for New York that everyone kind of watched. I saw a lot of people post Ryan's bar mitzvah party that happened a few weeks later. It was a big healing process. So close to your 13th birthday. So yeah, it was
Uh,
a good time.
let me just throw in a random curveball.
Oh,
Maybe it's not
okay.
a curveball or a random fact, and I post it every year because to this day it blows my mind. So there's a gentleman named Ben Sliney. He
Okay.
is the former Federal Aviation Administration National Operations Manager. So FAA National Operations Manager, former. He actually portrayed himself in United 93, the movie,
Oh,
which
okay.
was directed by Paul Greengrass. His first day in that title was 9/11/2001. I cannot even
Okay.
imagine what is
Right, right,
going
right,
through your
right.
mind. It's my first day in the job, and the world is under attack, and they're using airplanes. I just can't even imagine.
No, it's insane. Uh and kind of I don't want to say the opposite of that, because there's no opposite of that. We do want to spotlight, and I apologize if I don't say his name correctly, Rick Rescorla. All right, if you get the chance, check out who Rick Rescorla is, or Google Morgan Stanley security chief. So Rick he's a British nationalist who joined the United States Armed Services. And when the World Trade Center had a bomb in the mid 90s, as Morgan Stanley's security chief, he made the 3,000 some employees for like 6-7 years. They did fire drills. They did bomb drills. Like he worked. Yeah, he kicked their butts.
Yeah.
You know, he kicked their butts.
Yeah.
You know, he remembers, you know, like in his story, like people mocked him, like, stop it. This is never going to happen, you know. And so again, the tragedy of the day, which you'll notice we're flirting with it because it is very traumatic. It is just an incredibly sad thing. So we're not going to try to like get you know, like Ryan had texted me earlier, you know, like, yeah, it is. You can't watch these shows. That is so just sad. But Rick, you know, again, so when the two airplanes hit, people were being told to stay put.
I remember that.
You know, it's like any decision that's made, like, you know, the decision, you know, the CDC and Fauci and every decision that we've watched be analyzed for the last 18th month in that spot moment. Again, these people had half an hour, 20 minutes to make these decisions.
Yeah.
They thought, oh, stay put, don't have them move towards. But Rick said, nope. And he got, I think, everyone but like 18 people out. You know, like he got almost everyone out, and unfortunately not himself, which is, you know, he's a hero, but he got himself, you know, he got everyone, which is, again, unfortunately, most of the businesses did not get that much success of getting people out, but it was because he had them ready, and then he sang songs over the bullhorn. He kept them kind of like focused. It was just a really nice, heartwarming story, you know, unfortunately, with a sad ending for him, but he's a hero. We also, every year, you hear about Steve Buscemi's involvement. You know, Steve, as an actor, before he was an actor, was a member of the New York fighting community in the 80s. And then when the planes hit, he was nervous. He started calling no one's answering because by the way, this hurts my head too. As we sit here, you know, this is kind of one of those things I want to like say F you to some of these zip code pages. Like, there's 500 plus firehouses in New York City. You know,
can't
like
there's
500. Like, I don't know if we count up the rest of New Jersey, if there's 500 firehouses, and you know, they all were responding. You know, they were all going, and the you know, and so when Steve got no result, he went down there. He spent most of the next 4 or 5 days in the recovery effort. You know, again, it's like, I mean, Steve Buscemi does not come across like a Kardashian, you know, like, or, you know, or some of other people who were there, like handing out water bottles on the fringe. Steve was there moving things, trying to rescue people. That was, you know, I always love seeing that. Also, Pete Davidson comes up every year. And it's so interesting, because we could definitely do stories about Pete when we do our Who's Taking Care of Our Celebrities, you know. Definitely. But Pete was 8 years old, and his father, Scott, was a firefighter who did not make it out of the towers. That is that's the kick in the butt, is that so for the firefighters and policemen and rescue people that were there. Fire, as I said the right way. It's every story is, they were last seen going into the North Tower. They were last seen going, that was it. The last time you saw them, they were going into the tower because they were doing their job. They were not, you know, they were not worried about anything but getting as many people as they could out. And so many of these firefighters, like Rick from Morgan Stanley's story, it wasn't like they went in there, like they had gotten already helped rescue people. And Pete Davidson talks about it. Like, again, Pete Davidson is a dark comic. Like he will make, you know, he's pretty good at making fun of himself, and he will often make light of it. But his life is very much informed by that trauma. Like, you know, he very much acted out, you know, and had issues, and is still, you know, an addict and fights that. And he definitely knows that his father's death, and his death in such a tragic way, definitely informed who he is today. But the positive is that he does do a lot of work along with Jon Stewart,
I'm
because
about to say shout out to Jon Stewart.
yeah,
Always.
because what we learned as we celebrate the heroes of that day is that so many of those heroes who spent the next months and months, they were just breathing shit. They were just,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so Jon Stewart and Pete Davidson, but Jon Stewart has really led that fight for making sure any of the first responders talk about a word. I don't know if I heard in 2000 and 1999, 2000, but first responders is a word that
Yeah.
very much became a
Yeah.
word in 2001.
Yeah. And one thing I have you been to the 9/11 museum in New
I
York?
have. I've yes.
One thing that always stands out to me, and I actually tried to find a map of it on Google, and I was unsuccessful. If you type in like fire, like I think they refer no, I know they refer to them as ladders, fire stations, whomever responded to 9/11. They give you a map, and it's the island of New York. But one thing that I
Right.
noticed in the museum, and it always sticks out to me, is that they actually show past the island into New Jersey. What's right above it? Connecticut. I'm horrible at
Yep.
geography.
Yeah. Yep.
All these other fire stations, fire departments that responded as well, and and I'm sure. I think there's actually one fire station that's represented in World Trade Center, the movie, and I think that's how we all felt, or most of us felt, where it was just like we have to do something. Obviously, I wasn't in a position. Anybody else who wasn't a first responder wasn't in a position. But there was people who I'm sure in New Jersey and Connecticut and the surrounding states who didn't get the call. They're not on the same transmission. They're just like, nope, screw this. Like, we're just gonna go. We're just gonna go for it. We're just gonna help whoever we can. So, always shout out to everybody who responded to on 9/11, because it was one hell of a disaster, as we all know, for days, for weeks, even just that day. Just my I worked in New York City, as a lot of because I mentioned it a lot. And two things I want to know, actually three things I want to note. The first thing is that a lot of people whom I work with, a few who I work with to this day, like today or currently, they'll talk about how they take security and fire alarms and everything so seriously because they just heard the planes crash. And then when the towers started collapsing, they were pulling people in. They were trying to help whoever they could. They were actually right next to I believe there was a border, like you couldn't go over it unless you were a first responder for ground zero, which extended blocks. They were right next to it. And, they take security very seriously because of that. One thing that sticks out in my mind is somebody forgot a suitcase in the lobby when I was working in New York City. And one of the security guards who lived in New York, grew up in New York, he came to take the suitcase away because the suitcase was sitting there for a while. And all of us were just kind of like, I'm going to be very honest. When you work in New York and there's a suitcase like that, you're kind of just like, I'm not taking my eyes off this suitcase.
Right.
So he came, got the suitcase, took it away. The person came back for it. The security guard asked the guest, "Is this your suitcase?" And the kid goes, "Oh, yeah, it's mine." The security guard, and I'll never forget it, looks at him and goes, "Let me tell you something. This is New York City. You don't just leave your suitcase lying around in the lobby." And the kid goes, "Oh, okay, I got it, man." And the security guard goes, "No, I'm serious. Don't ever do that again." So, and I don't say it to be like, "Oh, he's a tough guy" or anything. Like, they are still living through what happened, if that makes sense. They have PTSD of their own. Yeah.
No, and we if you see something, say something, has become a part of vernacular that again didn't exist in 1999. Like, that suitcase would have sat there all day and said it's not my problem. But now, and again, it's mainly you see it in New York. And to tie it in with what we're dealing with in 2021 and with taking the vaccine, not taking the vaccine, blah blah blah. Like, listen, 20 years ago, you didn't have to take your shoes off before you got into a plane. You could have brought a bottle of water, and all these things that we just learned, these people in New York City who, if they see a like that, I hate to use the word trigger because sometimes we say it to be a little silly, but that security guard was very, very upset about that because it was not to be taken lightly, and it's like, it's why when someone asks you to wear a mask in a Walmart, just do it, because because that person could have had their grandmother die, like their family, and again, this is just, we live with it. I do want to, before I do my rant, which I may change my mind and not do the rant. No, I'm going to do it. But again, you talk about all the things I've seen the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. I've seen Tunnels to Tower. I've just seen it. And I just, I see it. I'm like, okay, yeah, it's a fundraiser. It's about, I did not know the story behind it until like 2 days ago, ago. And yeah, so for those of you who don't know the story, which everyone's probably like, we know it, but firefighter Steven Stiller, working out of a Brooklyn Squad 1, could only get the fire truck as far as to the tunnel, and then he ran in full gear the 5 miles through the tunnel to get to the tower. And it's just like, what a story. Like, again, like,
absolutely.
Again, when I say I'm making fun of myself, I'm making fun of myself, not light of this situation. Firefighter Richard, I'm at the I'm here. I'm here if you guys need anything. I got Brooklyn covered. That's why I'm going to be like, and again, and here's the thing. I know that, yes, I might have done the same thing. You might have done the same thing. Yeah, because that was just pure adrenaline. Like that day was, and again, like that's what I kind of say, like, what could I do? Like, I remember thinking, like, is there a point? Should I go up there? What should we do? Like, how, what can I do?
You're like, I can move some rocks. Like, seriously, right? Like, I'll just dig. That's all I can do, but I'll do it.
So
yeah,
it was crazy. So this part is called Richard Vents. I left a little note in our planning thing. My only vent, and again, I know that TV and news and like the baseball game and the football games, but I also hear people around me say it. 9/11 was a horrible tragedy. The heroes of that day are heroes because they were doing selfless acts. But I'll hear people, on the zip code pages, and I'll see people rather on the zip code page, like, oh, I'll never forget how we came together as a country after that. And again, it's because your memory of it is, you're not remembering the kill everyone who's a Muslim. You're not remembering hating on people because they look different than you. You remember your all white town, all putting up flags and celebrating and being happy and coming together. But at the same time, like, you didn't stop being racist. You didn't stop being, homophobic. It's not like you were like, oh my goodness, this horrible, we came together. Like, yeah, like, again, and yes, on that day and over the next few days where people just pulling hands and rescuing people, yes, that happened. And that is the tragedy. But just the Joe Blow, the guys driving by the gas station by my house, screaming out, go back to your country. Like, they weren't part of that. And and again, and also, this has existed for most of the last 20 years. People, and again, and it, you were 13, you were younger at the time, but anyone, older knows, like, we left those days and weeks going, the world would never be the same. It wasn't because little things changed, and, but, every time there's a gun shooting and 20 kids die in a school, it's the same. We still, and so that was just kind of like my pet peeve from the weekend, like, was like, yeah, people put flags out more and stuff like that. But I wish we had, I wish we had come together more. I wish people were more, and that's, for me, like, I feel less patriotic about the day and just more about honoring, that's to me what sticks out. And again, like I said, we focused in New York, but what Flight 93 did, what Flight 93 did was, I heard again, there's no wonderful stories in this, other than saving people's lives. But, like, when the families fought to listen to the black box, and they finally got to hear the black box, and they could they could hear that their family members were fighting to get in the cockpit, and they knew to stop the plane, and they knew to, like, just that monumental, like, most of life's decisions are split second, you step in front of a bus for any of your kids, but you're making that decision like that. I mean, you literally have to sit there and go, in order to save 5,000 people somewhere, my memory's bad. I don't remember where they thought, the White House or something, like, Capitol building.
They thought that they were heading towards DC still, which
DC
it
still,
was
yeah.
PA, and they were heading that direction, I
Right.
believe. So yeah, they were heading towards DC.
So yeah, like that, you know, again,
Whew.
and then again, the Pentagon, I think we always kind of like think of last because that's the government, you know, that was the military, but people lost their lives that day. That was, you know, what could have happened. You know, I was in preparing for the show, I was trying to think of like, oh, let's keep it pop culture related. There are hundreds of stories, and I chose not to go with them because like every story was like Michael Jackson was supposed to be in the World Trade Center, but he overslept because he stayed up too late. You know, Seth MacFarlane was supposed to be on this flight,
Just
but he
about to say that
overslept.
one.
Like,
Yeah,
but everything was like, it wasn't that like some neat like. It was like they were just drunk or
Seth
overslept.
MacFarlane was drunk. Yeah,
Right. It wasn't because of any sort of like, you know, Gwyneth Paltrow hit a girl on her bike or something, like hit a girl on her bike. On the girl was on her way to the airport, and Gwyneth Paltrow like her scooter or something, like, and again, didn't hurt her, but like
but she stopped her from getting on it.
stopped her from getting on a plane. Yeah,
Oh,
like it was
that's
just like, you know,
crazy.
all these things. Like I was like, okay, none of these are really heroic. It was just that. Yeah. Like, again, Michael Jackson's was so funny because he's like, you know, he was supposed to be in there doing his victory, his last tour, which would turn out one of his last things, and yeah, he stayed up late talking to his mom on the phone, and then like he's like, "Hey, mom," like I was like, all right, Mike, good." So yeah, just you know, again, we tend to do this. We should talk about it and remember it if it's year 23, or, but I'm sure in year 25, it just, you know, we are human beings. Anniversaries are important to us. So we remember 9/11, and we remember all the good that people do, and remember that we can do good. Is there anything that people around us can do to help people who might be suffering from different things, Ryan?
You know what? There is,
Okay.
and I admitted
I
this.
I wasn't expecting you to have an answer. All right, awesome. This is phenomenal. Okay, great.
Not 9/11 related, ladies and
No,
gentlemen.
but
I
still, yeah.
am I'm giving a shout out for my wife's lupus fundraiser. My wife Monica, she has been diagnosed with lupus. I will go as far as to say she suffers from lupus and the side effects that it can bring: pain constantly in her joints and her muscles, fatigue, and things of that nature. And still, if anybody knows my wife, she gets it done. You'd never know that she has a disease that's slowly bugging her and things like that. We've got 3 kids, sometimes 4. My daughter's here. She works full time. She holds down the fort while I'm at work, working crazy hours. So if you are interested in joining our team, Team Mon, where we're walking for lupus on October 16th, you can do it virtually this year because
nice.
still COVID rules.
Yeah.
Reach out to us. It would be the Oppenheimer Hub at gmail.com. And if you're lucky enough to be friends with Richard and I and friends with us on social media, I will be posting a link every day. We need your help. I dropped the ball. We're 1 month out. I know we can get it done. It's definitely an attainable goal. So be in touch. Be in touch with me.
And Monica, if you're still listening, yeah, there's a great episode of House. You know, House always thinks it's lupus, but there's a great episode of House where he shaves a woman's head, and then there's just a tick bite on her head, and so it wasn't lupus; it was Lyme disease. So if you want to consider shaving your head, Monica, to see if the Lyme disease bullseye is there, it's just an idea. You may not have to do that. So, but
you may not have to do it.
Yeah, listen. I don't know if having Lyme disease is that much better, but it's.
We just got canceled.
It is right. It is what. Listen, listen. Here's the deal. We've got to make British Tim, Renee, your mom, Monica, Shanna happy. We got like 5 people. We got to watch what we say for those people. And again, what the hope always is that if the person comes to us and says, "Hey, you made a joke about Lyme disease and lupus," that I would be on next week going, "Hey, I'm sorry for what I did. I talked to the person. They informed me what I did. Monica said she does not look good with bald hair. She really,
We will own up to it.
I would make the joke that Ryan would leave her, but Ryan would not leave her if she was bald. If she was whatever she did, Ryan knows how to handle things. So
I would never leave her. No. So yeah, I mean, I guess we'll wrap it up with, I cannot believe where 20 years went. without starting the podcast all over again, I talked to you a little bit about this. You would think that getting older, I'd be able to deal with it a little bit more. I can. Turning point 9/11, Monica put it on. The first 15 minutes, the dialogue and the things that were happening, I just can't handle it the same way. I don't want to watch the sadness, if that makes sense. But with that being said, always remember what happened. Always remember the lives that were lost and the ripple effect that it had on the world, right? Society, everything that changed. And always remember everybody who lost their lives and those who were left behind, who had to continue on without their loved ones, who lost their lives in blink of an eye for no reason. So that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, that was well said. I can't say any better. As it accentuate the positives of that day in terms of how many people have been inspired to go into being a first responder, being a firefighter or a medic, and do great things like that. So so hopefully we'll come up maybe again, we are always a much more lighthearted, but this needed to be addressed and stuff. So next week, when you hear us a week from now, I didn't think Mayor of Easttown should have won. We'll be back talking about the Emmys, talking about who won and who did not win. And and that should be a little more relaxed and fun. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you everybody for joining us, and we will see you all next week. Everybody take care. Be safe. Be well. Hug your loved ones. Here we go.
Yep. Amen. Oh, I said amen. Was that